Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so didn't really look at the stats on yesterday's game with the New York Knicks and the Pacers. I don't think I even glanced at those, to be honest with you. But I did watch a good portion of that basketball game. The Knicks were down by as much as 20, I think maybe 21 or something like that, probably 20. And then from there, were able to come roaring back. At the end of the second quarter, what you saw was the Knicks team that started to really find their momentum, and Karl-Anthony Towns was starting to get going after having only 28 minutes in the previous game. He was a minus 20 in game two. A lot of controversy about not playing him and how much they could have used him, getting on a heater. And he came back in game three and made Thibodeau, focus a little more on him. And it was a great decision because Cat had one of them big Cat games. He's too talented of an offensive player to not be utilized. I understand if he's having a bad night shooting the ball, his defense can really hurt the team at times. But with his ability to stretch the floor at that height, with his ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the line and finish, you really need to utilize that and just kind of live with his defensive issues at times. And granted, I'm a believer in Mitchell Robinson when he's healthy. He's healthy right now, so you want to give him opportunities as well. But Mitchell Robinson is such a free throw liability and an offensive liability in a lot of cases, with the exception of the offensive rebounds and putbacks and stuff, that you really take a loss with him too in a different way than you would with Cat. Both of these guys are kind of one-way players, so you're not really getting from them everything you need all the time. You just got to kind of go with what you can, and given the fact that the Pacers have such versatility with that 4 or 5 spot, it kind of makes it so that you don't want to run double bigs, which is something that the Knicks are pretty good at doing. They have that luxury for themselves. I thought the Knicks played with a whole lot of heart. I thought the Pacers played, just like I said about OKC, but to a much lesser degree, played like they were up 2-0 with the idea that this New York Knicks team was kind of going to roll over. I just think that both of the teams that were up 2-0 in these conference finals have shown me that they are a bit flawed right now, because they don't come in with that killer instinct looking to take your heart from you. So they can both be beaten. And that's what I think I've learned from both of those teams. They can be beaten. I don't know if they're going to lose in this series, but when they come up against one another, I think it could be a potentially long series either way, because both of them kind of have that mentality to a degree where they don't have to strain as hard when they have a 2-0 lead, or when they feel like they have the mental edge. They tend to, their I'm not going to say focus, but their intensity wanes a bit. And I just think that provides parity to everything, to all the 4 teams that are left. So, that's what I saw there. The Pacers are a really good team, but I'd be lying if I said they're a great team. The Knicks are a good team. They're not a great team. OKC, people love saying they're the greatest defense of all time. I think they're one of the more capable defenses to ever play the game. I'm ready to say that. But to say they're the greatest defense of all time, I know that they would have some serious issues with dominant bigs. So, for example, if I take the greatest team of all time, and I know I'm getting kind of off track here, but if I'm going to take the greatest defense of all time, they're going to have answers for certain things all time. And when it comes down to it, granted, some of these players that have existed in this league are unguardable, so it's not fair necessarily that I say, if you're the greatest defense of all time, go guard Shaq, go guard Kareem. Nobody could guard those people, right? But if you're going to be the greatest defense of all time, you had better have some answer for everything. And I don't think OKC has an answer for everything. I think they're the best defense for this spread out offensive era, right? And for a lot of people whose memory Rolodex only goes back 25 years or less, yes, they're the greatest defense you've ever seen. But to say they're the greatest defense of all time because they can guard this era of specific space the floor basketball, is a disrespect to the eras that came before it, for which they would have no answer for. They would have no answer for Shaq. They'd have no answer for Kareem. They have no answer for Akeem. They'd have no answer for none of these big teams that have big star, super duper center Hall of Fame dudes. But because none of them people exist in today's league, they get away with being the best defense of all time. They're the best defense of this time. All time? No, OKC is not the greatest defense of all time. Because if it really came down to it, they would be ousted by teams with great centers. Period. They would be ousted, fam. They have no answer for that. And so that's really my point of view. I don't like the idea of people calling the greatest defense of all time. Not that it has anything to do with the Pacers or the Knicks. But nevertheless, getting back to the Pacers and the Knicks, we got a series again. I'm kind of happy about it because I want more basketball, you know. We're now down to 4 teams, and if we have sweeps, boy, the finals are going to be a couple weeks away, and then look up and we're having 3 months off of basketball. I don't want 3 months off of basketball without more basketball right now to enjoy. So the Knicks extending this series definitely plays into what I would prefer. I want both of these series to go 7. I really do. The more the merrier, especially given the fact that I do find myself having fun with these series, especially the Knicks and the Pacers. It's been a good series so far. One thing I will say, though, is though we went into yesterday's game believing the Pacers had a very strong edge on this series and looked like they had a chance to actually sweep the New York Knicks, I think now that we have a 3-game sample size, believe it or not, the Knicks are actually outplaying the Pacers through 3 games. Because game 1, the Pacers had to erase a 20-point deficit to win. Right? They had to erase a 20-point deficit to win, and they were getting thoroughly manhandled. In game 2, the game was close, and the Pacers edged them. In game 3, the Pacers themselves blew a 20-point lead and got the Knicks back in the game. So that's 2 out of 3 games where the Knicks had a closer stranglehold or an even stranglehold on the Pacers. So to say the Pacers have the edge right now, even though they're up 2-1, I don't know that it actually equates to that. I think right now the edge may be actually pointed toward New York based on how much of the first game they dominated and the fact that they did win game 3 and the fact that game 2 was close. But you could say the same thing about the 20-point lead that the Pacers had, so I guess it evens out. The point is, yesterday changed a lot of things as it pertains to this series. Not just in getting the Knicks back into it, but in terms of the mental edge. Now the Knicks have many quarters in this series where they can say that they had the advantage on that Indiana Pacers team. And that is something that the Pacers need to do something about in game 4. It is so important that the Pacers do not lose game 4. That's essentially where I'm at with that. Now that they've given up game 3, they really do need to win game 4. Because if they let the Knicks back into this series headed back to New York, I think the New York Knicks are highly favored to win game 5. So I feel a momentum switch with yesterday's basketball win, especially since the Pacers, you know, we look back on history a lot of times without getting into numbers or anything, just in the history of my mind as I look back on basketball, the playoffs. When you have a 2-0 lead and you're playing in game 3 and you're up by 20, that's when your killer instinct must kick in and say, we got to close this game out. We have a 3-0 lead. No one's ever come back from an 0-3 deficit. We basically are default to win the series if we hold our 20-point lead. And the Pacers allowed the Knicks to get back in that basketball game and ultimately edge them out and win. That psychological process, when you consider the Knicks also blew a lead in the first game by that amount, but it wasn't so much on the line. The Knicks had 3 more games before they would have otherwise gotten swept after blowing that 20-point lead. The Pacers with a 2-point lead, 2-game lead, and a 20-point lead in the 3rd game going into halftime or whatever, that's when you know that you are responsible for taking care of business and closing the series out. And when you don't, and you leave a team with a lot of confidence, the belief that they can find a way to keep themselves alive and that you can't hold them, especially when you consider that just like the Pacers, the Knicks have had double 20-point overcomings in these playoffs, particularly the back-to-backs against the Celtics, where they were down by 20 and came back and won. So now you get to a space where it's like no lead is safe if you're the Pacers. The Knicks believe they can come back into any basketball game, and you have doubt that you can hold on to any 20-point lead against this team. I just feel like there's some psychological concerns for me if I'm the Pacers going into game 4. Because what you had was a couple of mental edges. One, that the Knicks had never won any playoff games in that building. That was the first mental edge that the Pacers had over the Knicks. The Knicks had literally never won in the field house in a playoff game. And then furthermore, they had already blown their own 20-point lead in that first game. So that psychological edge was also something that the Pacers could benefit from in theory. But now that the Pacers have blown their own 20-point lead, let the Knicks back into it to have a little hope. A 2-1 deficit going into game 4 is not the worst thing to overcome mentally, especially when you had just won the game that you needed to on the road. Now suddenly you're trying to put pressure on the team that you just beat to try to win at home. Can they beat you in their building? As opposed to can you ever win a game in their building? It's a lot of psychological things that the Pacers handed back. A lot of psychological momentum that the Pacers handed back to the Knicks yesterday just by losing that basketball game, in my opinion. And I think there could be a potential real switch in this thing going into game 4. If the Knicks win game 4, suddenly all the momentum is on the Knicks side. All of the psychological demons that the Knicks otherwise had against the Pacers are pretty much nullified. And now the Pacers have some psychological demons to overcome themselves to say, is any lead that we get safe? Was the truth about our series more so in the first 3 quarters of game 1 and what took place in game 3 to really actually determine what we look like against the Knicks? Can we stop Karl-Anthony Towns? Because he did have some big games against us in the regular season. And now he's having some big games against us in the playoffs. And the only time we really dominated the Knicks is when the coach removed Karl from the game. So this becomes a conversation about psychological edge. It becomes a conversation about killer instinct, about the true belief in oneself as it pertains to the team and the unit. And the Pacers, I think, are in a really dangerous situation now, having given up game 3. After being up by 20 in game 3 with a 2-0 lead. You find yourself now wondering if they're about to give up game 4 and suddenly you're going to give them a minute back to the Knicks fully going back to New York. Or it's very hard to win a game. It's very hard to win a game in New York. And the Pacers already struggled in game 1 in New York. So we know how much the Pacers are capable of struggling in New York without the heroics of a outer body game from Aaron Naismith, of whom rolled his ankle in the last one, may not even be available for the next one. He did come back in yesterday's game, but he's not going to be 100%. Can they even beat the Knicks without Aaron Naismith playing at 100%? I think Aaron Naismith has missed maybe 2 3-point shots in this series. I don't know that they can even win this series without Aaron Naismith being at 100%. I don't know if he's not the edge difference in regards to what we're seeing here. So you couple that with his injury. I have no doubt that the Knicks need to approach games 4 like it's game 7. Because if you can get yourself a 3-1 lead, though they have been overcome, it's still a super long shot that the Knicks are able to win 4 straight against you. Or 3 straight against you. Super long shot. But if you let these Knicks get tie the series up, headed back into New York, now you're in a space where you got a dogfight on your hands. A super dogfight on your hands. And mind you this, you give up game 4, even if you win game 5, now you got a Knicks team that says we just won 2 straight in Indy. Why can't we win game 6 in Indy? You see what I'm saying? Now it becomes a situation where you're wondering if you can beat that team in your building if you drop game 4. So it's so many psychological issues here. God forbid the Pacers lose game 4 and game 5 and then have their own backs up against the wall with the Knicks having won all the games on the road in this series. This is one of the most important games in Pacers history, in my opinion. Game 4, though they don't have their back against the wall, though they are up in the series, the way this series has panned out, they gotta win game 4. That's what I have to say. The Pacers have to win game 4. Because if they don't, I have strong concerns that they won't win another game in this series. And so that's what I have to say about the Pacers. I was very disappointed in them blowing that 20-point lead yesterday. You have a team up against the wall. You're up by 20 going into halftime. That game should be over. You keep your foot on the gas, pedal to the metal, and you destroy a team. You got Jalen Brunson in foul trouble. He picked up 4 fouls before the end of the half. There's no way you lose that basketball game. No way. So it takes me to a different mindset. Taking me to a whole different mindset as it pertains to, now I'm shifting my focus to the other series. Talk about both series in this video. The way OKC lost game 3. I didn't look at the stats, so I don't know this to be true. But I don't think you can combine both deficits that Minnesota had in both game 1 and game 2 to come out to what it is that Minnesota won game 3 by. If I'm not mistaken, the Minnesota Timberwolves was up by as much as 50 points or something like that in game 3. There's some losses that I legitimately think should cost you 2 games. And the way that OKC Thunder lost game 3 should have cost them 2 games. You can't blow a team out in game 1 and game 2 in your building and come back into their house and get slaughtered as bad as they did in game 3. That was an effort issue that I had with the OKC Thunder. Yes, they had some issues hitting shots. Yes, the Minnesota Timberwolves couldn't miss. But you're supposed to be the greatest defense of all time, allegedly, however that goes. And you give up 146 points? Nah, that should not ever happen. Never. OKC, to me, is overrated. And this brings me back to the conversation we had a little earlier. They have fantastic perimeter defense. They really do steal the basketball. But there are things that Minnesota can throw at them that I don't know that they have an answer for. And so for them to be the greatest defense of all time, how could that even be possible? How could that even be possible? Say they're the greatest defense of all time. How are you giving up 146 points in a conference finals game? It's just like, I don't see what everybody else sees. I do think they're the best team of the 4 left. I do think at the end of the day, if I'm going to put my money on anybody, I'd say they probably win the championship right now. But to say that they're so great, I don't see them being that great of a team. I think they are a good team, really good team. But to say they're great like everybody's saying, I don't see it, man. I don't see it. That was deaded, in my opinion, back when they lost the game in the in-season tournament to the Milwaukee Bucks, where they missed a million shots in a row, couldn't score but like 70 points or whatever it was. That showed me right there that this team ain't what people say it is. They may be better than everybody in the league, but they ain't better than some of these teams that won championships all the time. Like, no, man. No. Some of y'all caught up in the moment, and I respect that. Some of y'all ain't never seen good defensive teams because y'all ain't older than 25 years old and ain't been too many good defensive teams in your lifetime. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's the case. But for people who grew up in the 90s, in the early 2000s, we're not confused by OKC as it pertains to them being a great defensive team in comparison to teams like the San Antonio Spurs back in the day. or the 01 Lakers, or who else? The Detroit Pistons of 04. And these are way greater defensive teams than OKC, in my opinion. Way greater. Like, way greater. Like, I'm not really trying to hear nothing about, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just a hater, y'all. Maybe this is what it comes down to. Maybe I'm just a hater. But I'm not trying to hear nothing about OKC being the greatest defensive team or nothing. I ain't trying to hear that. When he's giving up 146 points to a Minnesota team that has trouble scoring at times. They're not even a great offense. This is actually a subpar offense that they gave up 146 points to. I'm not here for the glazing of the Thunder, man. I'm just not here for it. Call me a hater, bro. I'm not here for it. So tonight the Thunder are gonna have to prove themselves capable of winning in Minnesota, prove themselves capable of scoring against Minnesota's defense once again, particularly in that building. And if they can't do that, this series is gonna be tied up. Now, do I feel the same way with the urgency that I think that the Pacers should have going into Game 4 as I do as OKC? Not really. Not really. I don't think it's the same urgency. I think it's a different urgency. I think it's a similar situation, but I think OKC has a bit more leeway to expect to still win the series if they happen to lose Game 4. But just the same, you want to put some doubt in Minnesota's mind if you're OKC. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're looking up and this team has gotten back in this series, getting another blowout win against you. All of the games in this series have been a blowout. That was what we predicted. We talked about that yesterday a little bit. And not every game would be a blowout, but there would be times where one team would be able to score and the other team would not. Because at the end of the day, these are both teams that do have issues scoring the ball, issues stretching the floor specifically at times. Neither one of these teams are really great shooter teams. You know, they have nights where they can shoot the ball. They're not horrible shooting teams, but they're going to be nights where both of these teams can't shoot a lick. Particularly Game 1, Minnesota, we saw that. We saw that. They couldn't save their lives in Game 1. And OKC has had, like I said, we mentioned that game. There was also a couple of games throughout the course of the regular season where Minnesota's catch and shoot issues, OKC's catch and shoot issues reared their ugly head at times. So they're not elite scoring teams. These are defensive teams. And when you have two defensive teams going up against one another, neither one of them great offensive teams, there are going to be nights where one team has it going on the defensive end and the offensive end while the other team is struggling on the offensive end playing against that defense. It's just how that goes. So you can expect lopsided deficits on both sides whenever that's the case. Because these are really good defenses, really elite level defenses. So that's why I didn't think I was some type of genius for thinking that these blowouts would be possible or that we would see a lot of blowouts, because it's just the nature of inconsistent offenses versus elite defense. But these teams also have the ability to pop offensively at times. So it's like when that happens and the other team is going cold, yeah, the score is going to be lopsided. You know, because the other team is definitely playing defense. So whatever team is scoring a lot is also defending a lot. So it's just what that looks like on paper to me. Minnesota needs to continue to clash the glass. They have that edge in their personnel. I know Hartenstein is a hell of a player who can grab boards and stuff like that, but they are at a deficit defensively on defensive rebounds and offensive rebounds too, I think. Both sides of the boards. I think Minnesota is likely able to find themselves successful. You know, one of the things that I think needs to continue is Terrence Shannon getting opportunities. I don't know how many opportunities. I think they're going to zero in on Terrence Shannon. He's probably going to turn the ball over a little more if he's given more opportunities. It's just the nature of being a rookie in this type of situation against this defense. But what he gave them in Game 3 was exactly what I had envisioned. A lot of downhill play, easy buckets, getting to the line, finishing at the rim. I just expect that will be what to expect from Terrence Shannon as he develops. And I love that he's gotten this opportunity in such a big game this early in his career to really show that he can play. I think he's going to be a terrific player going forward once the opportunities start to come around for him. And so this is where I think the momentum is. I still think it's in OKC's possession because the first two games were blowouts. And the third game really was what you would consider an anomaly, because Minnesota ain't really going to score like that again. They're really not. That was like the peak of Minnesota's scoring ability. And I always worry about just the consistency of some of their players on the offensive side. You know, Naz Reid, he had a really good game in Game 3. Is he going to play well tonight? I don't know what I'm going to get out of him from night to night tonight. Only time he's really consistent is going up against the Lakers, man. If the Lakers on the floor, he's going to be an all-star every night. But all the rest of the teams in the league, he's here and there. I thought he was awful in Game 1, kind of okay in Game 2, and came around in Game 3. Is he a front runner that can only play well at home in this series? Is that what the story is going to be there? They're going to need him to show that he can continue playing well in order for them to be able to be successful. Because if they put him in the game and he's bricking all types of shots, he ain't great enough defensively, especially against that personnel, OKC, to really leave out there for too long. It's very incumbent upon him crashing the glass and making shots. Because that's what it really comes down to for Naz Reid, man. You gotta board and score. And so he's important tonight. I'm curious about what they're going to get out of him. I saw them kind of get away from Mike Conley a little bit in Game 3. Saw how much success they had. I've been calling for them to bench Mike Conley in this series. I just don't think this is a Mike Conley series at all. I really don't. I don't think he does enough on either side of the floor to justify playing him over Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Donte DiVincenzo. I just think those two provide so much help guarding people like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You're going to need that point of attack defense on the floor more than you need whatever Mike Conley's out there doing. Whatever he's doing. 7 points, 4 assists. I don't need that type of production. As much as I need that point of attack defense offsetting what's coming at me defensively as well if I'm Minnesota. Because you best believe they're going to have great point of attack defenders on the floor at all times, disrupting your ball handler. So you need to do the same thing and keep your best on the floor for that same reason. Nickeil Alexander-Walker shot well at home. Is he going to shoot better on the road, though? Is he going to even have 2 good shooting games in a row? Because that's my thing with Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Donte DiVincenzo. They are aggressive as if they can shoot. The reality is they're very inconsistent scorers, and they don't often contribute very much. If anything, they're a greater bet to miss than they are to make, both of them. So it's like, if I'm going to have them on the floor, can they score? And if the answer is nah, then do I find myself unhappy with those players on the floor? And so they were good in Game 3, and it was telling, you know. And I think it's worthy to say that Finch did bench DiVincenzo a little bit in Game 3. He was more efficient with the lesser minutes. Some of that was because of garbage time. Some of that I think was also because of Terrence Shannon getting opportunities. DiVincenzo was a guy who I have to keep a lid on. I can't let him go 3 for 12 from behind the arc ever again if I want to have any success against OKC. That can never happen again. Not in this series. Not going to work. So my question is, can they live without him? And if they do try to live without him, are they going to be able to get enough out of the people they put on the floor? Because he does help you defensively, rebounding. If he's hitting corner shots, he could be very helpful. He's really scrappy, quick to loose balls and stuff like that. You need Donte DiVincenzo's things that he does positively on the floor and most of the time. But if he's going to shoot himself out of the game, if he's going to be somebody who's just launching shots, knowing damn well he's not efficient like that, then as I've said many times, it really does become part of what creates the dynamic that Minnesota is a rock-throwing team. He is one of the main reasons why I consider them a rock-throwing team, as I've said many times. So, Julius Randle, he's been great. I want to continue to see him be just as aggressive as he has been, driving at the rim, seeking out mismatches, confidently shooting the 3. If it continues to fall, he's going to continue to be a thorn in Minnesota's side. In OKC's side, excuse me. And so just from an OKC perspective, that's what I'm looking at. And can they continue to get a positive out of Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert's had a really tough playoffs with the exceptions of the games where he played amazing, like the Laker closeout Game 5. But can they get anything out of him offensively? I do think that they're better if they can find some scoring in the paint from him. They're damn near impossible to beat when that's going on, but you can't count on him there, so it becomes a situation where you just don't know if he's going to be a plus player out there on the offensive side. But yeah, it's a roll of the dice. He's almost like Dante in the same regard. You got to keep a cap on him, man. If he's playing well, you can trust him. If he's not playing well, you got to get away from him, and that's how you got to play both of those Minnesota players. Both of them. If they're playing well, go with them. If they're not, you got to get them off the floor because they're going to continue to be aggressive in whatever way that hurts you. They just both had that trait. So, yeah, these are the things, man. I think Minnesota really found something, man, going to Terrence, opting for more opportunities there. I would predict that, what's his name? Can't think of his name right now. But the small forward of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he's going to get back to scoring soon, man. He's going to get back to scoring soon. McDaniels, he's going to get back to scoring soon. He had, 10 points in Game 3. I don't think he had much more than that in Game 2. At some point in time, he's going to get back to 25, 30-point scoring. He's going to have at least 1 or 2 games in the series where he scores that much. I think. I do know that he has very tough defense on him right now. So it's going to be tough for him to kind of get some of the same looks that he had against the Lakers and against the Golden State Warriors. But I believe that his scoring game is probably tonight. At home, Game 4. I would imagine it's the game he's going to get his looks. So we'll see. We will see. McDaniels is the night. This is the night I would try to take him as a guy to get some buckets up tonight. It's just a guess, but it's just kind of time for him to kind of get his offense going against this OKC team. He's been a scorer all year long. He hasn't had too many games where he goes for under 12 points consecutively too often this season. He's had a few of those in a row now. It's time for him to break out in this series and make his scoring known. He's been getting off to quick starts, even in Game 1 where they got blown out. He got out to a very quick start, hit a couple buckets, but they got away from him. I think he needs to continue to look for his shot, continue to trust his offensive game because he is a much better offensive player at this point than he had been in the first several years of his career, and he could really help his team overcome some of those non-scoring nights if he's scoring like he's capable of doing. So, yeah, that's something. And then Ant-Man was so efficient in Game 3. I don't know if that's the Ant-Man I'm going to continue to see. I am of the mindset with Ant-Man that I just don't think of him as a very consistent player. He is a great star, and his ceiling is super, super duper Hall of Fame MVP. But at this stage in his career, some nights I'm getting this out of him, some nights I'm getting that out of him. I don't know what I'm going to get out of him. Like, he may go 1 for 9. He may have a game like he had in the last game where he went 11 for 16. Super efficient. I don't know what I'm getting out of him. And that I can't pencil him in for consistency troubles me. I do like how he's been crashing the glass. I think he's been excellent crashing the glass. I think the team is much better when he's looking to be aggressive driving at the rim than he is trying to pull a 3. But the way that he was shooting the last game, I feel that he's in a hell of a rhythm. Maybe after seeing this team 3 times in a row, this OKC defense, he might have figured some things out as to how to get his shot and how to attack that defense. So I'd imagine OKC is going to throw many looks at him going forward, probably some stuff he hasn't seen, and that would be wise because I think what we may have seen was him starting to figure out what works against them. And if that's the case, look out, because this is a very, very talented offensive player. So that's really what comes to mind. All this talk about OKC being the greatest defense of all time, man, I'm telling you, this is what I'm talking about. Like, Ant-Man had one of his most efficient games of these playoffs against these boys. Stop it. Just put an end to that, man. That's all I'm saying. Are they a great defensive team? Yes. Are they the best defensive team in the league? Yeah. Greatest of all time? Just because the numbers show you that they've been able to dominate the field they have does not mean that the field is not weak as hell. Because there are a lot of great defensive teams that would have dominated this field. It would have. They may have more strengths in certain areas than any other defensive team. They might have more quicker perimeter defense, or there are a lot of things that they probably edge the greatest defense of all time on. But like interior defense ain't one of them. It's just no. Let's stop this. And that's what I would say. Continue to attack their interior. Julius Randle, Naz Reid, obviously Anthony Edwards, Terrence Shannon. Drive at these people, man. Because I do respect they have some rim protection for sure. Chet Holmgren is a very good rim protector. I think they have some good rim protection. They're not bad in this area, but like that's where I'm going to try to find a way to overcome them. I'm not shooting a bunch of threes against them, especially with the personnel I got. No, I'm going to drive. I'm going to use the downhill offensive talent that I have to repeatedly test Chet Holmgren's ability to stay out of foul trouble. If he can keep his verticality and not foul, straight, we'll tip our hat. But I'm repeatedly driving at this skinny dude. I'm driving at him, and I expect to be able to draw many fouls. He's going to get some blocks. He's going to get blocks anyway. But I'm going to draw fouls. And that's what it really comes down to. And so that's really what I got to say. Keep drawing opportunities to go downhill if you're Minnesota. Go downhill, man, because you best believe the MVP is going to be doing the same thing on the other end. Trying to draw all the fouls in the world to get your guys in foul trouble. And that's the key. To put you on your heels, if you're Minnesota, put you on your heels. And have you trying to play from a position of weakness as it pertains to your defensive aggression because of that foul trouble. That's what he does. That's what they do. That's what worked for them in game 1 against you. So you got to do the same thing to them in game 4 at home and try to see if the referees don't lean in your favor when you're aggressive. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing to OKC for the rest of the playoffs. Whoever sees them in the finals, if they get that far, same thing. You got to drive at these dudes, man. You got to test out their ability to stop you at the rim without fouling. And if I'm OKC, I'm doing the same thing to the opponent. But I don't have to tell them to do that. You feel me? They're going to do that anyway. SGA puts more pressure on the rim than anybody else. He puts more pressure on defenses to get people in foul trouble more than anybody else. That's why everybody hates him so much. Because he's excellent at that. I have to ever wonder if he's going to be willing to put his body on the line and draw contact. Unlike Ant-Man, who does it when he feel like doing it. Unacceptable. He needs to drive more, man. Settling for them three-point shots bails the defense out. Keeps them out of foul trouble, in theory. And that's not what you need. You want them exposing. They're the deepest team in the league, right? That's what you want to expose. I want to see more Aaron Wiggins. I want to see more Kason Wallace. I'm gonna go into that bench. You got the best bench in the world, whatever. We gonna show me, because you're gonna have some big main dudes in foul trouble. And I'm telling you, and you remove Chet Holmgren somehow from this game, suddenly there ain't even a whole lot of rim protection. Not a whole lot. Chet Holmgren, solid. I don't accuse him of being a shot blocker. Jay Will, nice shot blocker, but he's a little undersized in that center position. Chet Holmgren is why it's so difficult to get into the paint as it pertains to scoring at the rim. Now, their point of attack defensive players obviously going to keep you from driving. They mess with you. They take the ball from you. They keep you, they mess with your dribble. I get that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm still testing out that rim protection. Because though it is formidable with Chet Holmgren, he's only one person. Remove him, and now you got a way to get to the line and finish at the hole. And so that's really what I got to say, man. I know this was a whole lot of pro Minnesota and a lot of anti-OKC. I don't like OKC. I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't rooting for OKC. And so I'm not gonna pretend I'm not biased or unbiased or whatever. I prefer the Minnesota Timberwolves to win the series. I think they're the underdogs. And I'm rolling with Minnesota, and so I'm looking at it from a pro Minnesota standpoint, hoping that Minnesota can find a way to win the series. That's what I'm hoping. Though I'm not putting my money on that. I just at the end of the day, I just think OKC is overrated and given too much love for stuff that they haven't proven they can really do. You know, people give them a lot of credit. This is what I said about Minnesota themselves going up against OKC in game one. They gave them way too much respect, way too much credit. Shooting 51 threes or whatever it was because they're afraid of driving in the paint. Stuff like, man, you give them way too much respect. Make them prove to you that they are like that before people start handing them everything. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. People are handing them everything. And to me, they're a nice team with a lot of talent. They're worthy of being here. They've had the best record all year in the Western Conference. They've dominated for a reason. But what I also saw with OKC was that they were always finding themselves in positions, in the losses that they had, to lose the teams that ultimately I thought they would need to beat in order to win the championship. They were able to avoid a lot of them teams, to be honest with you. They were able to avoid a lot of them teams. But they did have they did tend to lose games when they went up against a certain level of basketball play. And so that's something that I think will continue. If teams play at a high enough level, that team is vulnerable to lose the game that takes place in. And so the last thing you want to do when going up against that type of opponent is giving them too much respect. BDL 44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.